this is going to be a really powerful Genius morning session. You're going to be learning from the experts. This is essential advice to help you prepare for and achieve your extraordinary exit. And I know that a common goal between entrepreneurs, business owners, and Genius Network is potentially get to sell your business for maximum price possible, the maximum price possible, and exit with impact. So it's important that you prepare and you execute a strategy years before the sale. So Randy Long from Long Business Advisors and Rob Follows from STS Capital have joined us. They've joined forces to share their unique expertise on how to reach your maximum value potential. And they're going to talk in depth about their personal experiences and the insights they've acquired after years of helping clients prepare for and achieve the extraordinary exit. And this is a conversation. So at any point in time that you guys have a question, raise your digital hand. It's like we're sitting in the living room together, just having a chat. So this isn't a lecture or a big stage presentation. It really will be a conversation. And the conversation is designed to educate you on all the fundamentals. They do have a wonderful agenda of topics, but they do want to have your interaction as well. And so this is going to give you the education, the fundamentals of strategically positioning your organization for the sale and best practices to follow through the sale process. And I do want to tell you a little bit more about each of them. So Randy Long. Randy's mission is to help entrepreneurs and leave a family and business legacy. And he's personally helped hundreds of entrepreneurs sell to buyers outside their company, while also helping their families set up a successful future. And Randy is the CEO of Long Business Advisors and the Long Family Office. And he's written 2 books and given some great 10-minute talks. And he's also been host of Another Genius Morning. And Rob Follows. Rob's purpose and his passion is to help entrepreneurial business owners achieve maximum value when the right time comes to sell. And Rob's been involved with or led over 1,000 M&A transactions with a total transaction value of over $100 billion. And in addition to being chairman and founder of STS Capital Partners, Rob is also the founding chairman of Altruvest Charitable Services. They do some amazing work. And Rob is also the founding chairman. So he's provides corporate leaders training tools, and they improve their performance of local charities. So I'm really glad you are all here. Good morning, everyone. And I am going to turn it over to my friends, Randy and Rob.
Okay, so I'll start first here this morning. I'm going to give a little background about myself, and then Rob will give 3 or 4 minutes about himself, and then we'll start sharing some ideas. Also, I do want to say at the end, we have a checklist. We call it the Extraordinary Exit Checklist that Rob and I have worked together, and Ellen and Tyler, we've all worked on making this a valuable resource, big picture for you about the things that you need to consider as you consider exiting your own company. So we'll start with that. First of all, I have 2 major goals for our clients whenever we take them on. The first one, of course, is to build a company that is sellable, and also to build a company that runs like it's ready to sell all the time. It makes it an ELF company, as Joe would say, easy to run, lucrative because it's worth more money that way, and you have options. Your options are all there once you do it well. So that's the first thing. Secondly, our goal is to help you keep as much money as possible out of that transaction for yourselves today and also for your future, those that would come down your family line there. So those are 2 big goals for us. Background for me, I just want to give a quick one on here. First of all, when I got out of school, I knew that I wanted to be both an entrepreneur and I wanted to work with entrepreneurs. So I went to work with a Wall Street firm. I worked with them a couple of years. Being an entrepreneur, I left them and started my own wealth management firm. And after a couple of years and business owners were my target market, of course, but after a few years of working that way, I realized that I didn't know as much as I thought I did, and my value to business owners wasn't as great as I wanted it to be. So I went to law school and graduated law school. And then again, I opened my own office, my own law office. And we worked in estate planning and business transaction work. And we had some pretty substantial clients along the way. One of our clients, for instance, was a vendor of the year for Walmart. Another of our clients was a farming corporation that by themselves grew more peaches than the state of Georgia. So these are, humongous places. So we worked with those people. And then I was starting to already transition into practicing in the area of exit planning, which I did for some years as a lawyer. But I found that a little bit constraining, honestly, because as a lawyer, you have these conflicts rules, and it's a little bit challenging to negotiate those and trying to represent the company and the family at large and take care of all of these pieces. So we decided to roll that out of into a consulting company. And so we've been about 12 years ago, I founded the consulting company, and we've been practicing it through that. It gives us a lot more flexibility, and I eliminate all those conflicts rules too. And then we typically, sort of norm for us is to work with companies about 20 million to about 100 million. We have some right now and have in the past substantially larger than that. But we also have some smaller, substantially smaller, which is kind of fun. We just finished a transaction a couple of weeks ago with one of those little companies, which is really fun because we did a valuation on them about 4 years ago, and they were about 2.6 million, and we just sold them for 14 million. So they just couldn't imagine that they were going to have, an exit that was anything close to that. So those smaller ones sometimes can be really gratifying, I guess I'll put it that way, because they really, really need to do well on their exits. And then we closed another one recently for about a year ago for the owner thought it was worth 14 million, and we ended up getting 38 for it. So those are the kinds of things that are just fun for us to do. And then the best part of all of this for me is practicing the way we practice is just total fun. And Ellen joined me about 9 years ago now. And that has it's really it's given me new life and a new desire to stay in and work and to enjoy both who I work with and how I work. And the clients we get to work with, lots of them become our dear friends. So I'm going to turn that one now over to Rob and let him give a brief intro on himself.
Well, thank you very kindly. And I just want to say to everyone here, I wish when I was the entrepreneur that was selling my business that there was a Randy Long and Long Advisors and a Rob and STS Capital to work with, as it's a real honor to work with Randy, and together our firms can produce amazingly extraordinary exits for entrepreneurs and family business owners. And so just want to say thank you to Randy for all the work that we've done together and all the work we can do together in the future to support entrepreneurs. Randy can help structure a fantastic increase in the net amount that you're receiving and for your transaction and preparing the business. And we at STS can bring strategic buyers to the table that will pay much more than financial buyers, just as a summary.
Yeah.
We love to maximize value for clients. That's our passion. Our branding, STS, is success to significance. That's one of the STS trademarks through selling to strategics. And our deepest hope is that we can help double or triple what private equity or other financial players might pay you for the value of your business. And that you as an entrepreneur will think about your legacy, and maybe with that double or triple value, help make the world a better place in whatever way is meaningful to you. And so how did I end up in this business? I'm a lawyer too, I'll confess, with Randy, but didn't practice because I was working my way through law school to pay for law school. And that business was a marketing services business. I was thrilled to sell it for 27 times EBITDA to Merritt Inc. out of St. Louis, Missouri. And the reason they were willing to pay that amount had nothing to do with the EBITDA multiple, which we'll get to later. But after I sold the business and I became responsible for the acquisitions in Europe, and I asked to see my own file, I was working on a deal in Italy. They said, you can't see it. And I said, well, no, I must now. And when I saw the file, I saw the whole support for paying 100 times EBITDA for my business, which would tell you, you'd scratch your head and think 100 times EBITDA. Why would anybody do that? because they were going to save 300 times. And so it's the integrated value of a business. You'll hear people talk about the Rembrandts in the attic that the sellers might not be aware of value they have that really drives value. And with that experience and realizing I couldn't find anybody to help me sell the business with all the work we were doing around the world in M&A, we started STS Capital Partners on the selling to strategic side. How do we help people sell not to financially driven buyers, but to strategics that will share some of that upside value with you? And so that's the background on STS. It was started 20 years ago to help really support entrepreneurs in finding the true maximum value for their business. And with that, over to Randy about some of the details. And thank you all for listening.
Thank you, Rob. And I would second that. Rob has treated me like a brother and taken incredibly good care of my clients and is always available. I love working with Rob. I really do. A few key things to know as you consider your own exits. First of all, just know that most companies will never sell. And this is something that a lot of people don't talk about this, but it is the preparation of the company to sell that raises your chances of selling incredibly. So, I mean, the numbers like 85 or 90% of the companies that think they're going to sell aren't going to. And for lots of different reasons. And I could go a long ways in that discussion, but we only have so much time. So secondly, know your numbers. This is kind of a big deal for me. Know your numbers. Understanding that, what the company is worth, we need to find that out early. Secondly, we want to know what your net worth is apart from that company. And then thirdly, we want to ultimately know, what is your goal? What is the standard of living? What do you want to have after the exit is completed? And then once we've done that work, and we find the financial planner guys, if they're good at what they do, they help us seek that number out. And they're looking at the nuances that most people miss a lot. Living out of a company worth $30 million is a lot easier than living out of a $30 million portfolio, because you lose so many tax benefits and so many opportunities as a business owner once you sell. So understanding all of those things are really important. Ultimately, too, we want to make sure that the business owner is essentially unnecessary. The idea that we've got to build this management team, and the management team basically frees the business owner up. Not that we want them to quit or be out of the business completely. We love it when they turn into like the ambassador for the company. They think, they travel, they network. One of my clients did this incredibly well. Years ago, we removed him from CEO, and he decided, this was a farming corporation. And he decided he was going to travel the world and look for new varieties of fruit and all these kinds of things. And it turned out to be incredible, because the company over the next 5 years, we 10x the company over the next 5 years, because his contacts and the things he discovered on his travels and in deals made the company really explode. So, understanding kind of all of those things are really important. Also, too, whenever the valuation piece comes in important to us, because too often people assume that their company is worth sometimes too much, sometimes way too little. One of the companies we worked with some years ago, we started working with the company, and the father in the company, he told me that the company, he thought it was worth 25 million. And the son told me he thought his dad didn't know what he was talking about. The company was worth 50. So after we did the work on it, we basically, I told the family that I felt like we could get north of 100 million. And I'll never forget it, because the dad and the son both laughed out loud. I mean, absolutely laughed out loud at me. And that company we sold for 150 million, by the way. And it's because they didn't understand, they were assuming, and so they were putting off selling and all this because they kept thinking they had to grow, but they were way past what their goals really were. So understanding that kind of thing is a big deal. Also, we love to get valuations, by the way, along the way. So when we start, and then every once in a while, depending on how far out it is, you have goals to sell. Proper tax planning, it's a big deal to do the planning, both in income tax planning and estate planning. And you can have an incredible impact on the family doing this kind of work well. And as I mentioned before, it is important for what you sell for, but it's much more important for how much you keep after the sale and how much you're able to distribute over the years to charities and to your heirs down the line. So that whole thing about keeping what you want and working with good, smart people to help you. I'll give you a negative story, which raises this issue. So one of the things we do is we vet professionals as part of our job when we take on clients. And I took on this client, and after working with them for a while, for 3 years in a row, I advised them to get a new CPA firm. They didn't want to do that because this was a relationship the guy had gone to high school or college with. I can't remember. They didn't want to do the deal and get rid of the CPA the way I wanted to. So I made them put it in the corporate minutes every year for 3 years. Well, at the end of the third year, we got a big, huge tax bill of $4 million from the state of California. And so I hired a tax attorney to come in and do the background work on it to help us figure out what went wrong. And he said he was ready to give his results. And so I called a meeting of the CPA firm, the family, me and him. So he's at one end, I'm at the other end. The CPA firm's on one side and the family's on the other. And I set it up and asked him to tell us what he's found. He says, well, I found that the CPA firm has malpracticed the client, and I can prove it. And I strongly suggest right now that you fire these people because I will not work with them going forward. So we fired the CPA firm. They went off. We ended up settling unfortunately, that case for $1.4 million. But that was $1.4 million that we would not have had to pay if we'd had a good counsel. So just another, So the other thing too, I guess I'll talk about is doing some proper risk management. I know a lot of times people think, oh, risk management, that's insurance. Well, it is, but there's also a whole lot more things that go into risk management of a company. Contingency planning, obviously, for the family in the event that, a family member, especially the owner, is to die, not just to make sure that the company survives, but also that the family, all the pieces are in place so that just flows well, and you don't end up with spouses or children that are terrified over what they're supposed to do when the business owner dies. So that's super important, of course. The other mitigation, the thing about building a company so that it will run without the owner, that by itself is risk management. Because if something did happen to the owner, we don't miss a beat. The company still goes on. We can still sell the company. No change, no problem. And so that's a big deal. Also, too, risk. I'll give one more piece here, and then I'll turn it back over to Rob. Risk management also involves incentivizing your key employees. Too often, and now I won't say that every deal, that sometimes the business owners are right that they don't need to incentivize their key employees, but sometimes that goes wrong. We suggested to one of the companies that they incentivize there were two primary key employees of a fairly large company. And because I don't like to get to the place where we're 3 days away or a week away from a close, and one of the employees decides that they want a piece of the close, or else they're going to blow it up. And in this particular situation, we had a client just like that. We had an employee just like that with this client I was working with. And during the final week of the interviews by the owner of the key employees, he decided that the key employee realized how valuable he really was. And after his meeting with the buyer, he came over to the owner's office and basically said, I'm going to help you close this company, but I want $1 million of the sale price to do it. And if you don't give it to me, I'm quitting right now. Here's my termination letter. What's your choice? Now, my owner came to me. He's like, what am I going to do? I said, you're going to pay it, because we're talking about a huge amount of money here, and you're going to pay it. So risk management, he didn't do the risk management. It literally cost him $1 million. So there's lots of different moving parts here, looking for opportunities, looking for risks. And those are the things that collectively we do on the planning side and the sales side. It's all kind of works hand in hand. So with that, I will turn that back over to Rob and let him share some points of his with us.
Thank you very, very much, Randy. I just want to see whether anyone has any questions. If there's questions that are coming up now for Randy or myself, and before I jump into going a little bit deeper into preparation, there's a hand up there. Is that Neil?
I just wanted to ask how important in this process is the documenting of processes within the organization? I wonder if you could speak to that.
Do you want me to take that, or
Yeah.
do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Rob.
On the whole, if you're selling to strategics as opposed to private equity, the documenting of process, if your process is not what you're selling, is not really a requirement, because the strategic buyer will be integrating your business into their processes. Mm-hmm. However, in the event that it is your Rembrandt, one of your Rembrandts in the attic, and if people would like us to share that analogy, what that means, we're happy to do that if it's not obvious. And if indeed that is what you're selling, because you've got this incredible process that can be leveraged and scaled up, then and a strategic would do that, or they do it in a new geography, or they would do it with a new product or with a new management team or something like that, or going into a new area, then yes, you would want to document them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you want to add to that, Randy?
No, I actually, well said. It matters sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. In the ways you said it is exactly the way I would say it.
Did that answer your question? Yep. And there's another.
Thank you. Yes.
Neil, okay, thanks, Neil. Mike has his hand up, I think. Both Michael and Mike.
Hey, thank you, Rob. My question is this, and I think it pertains to a lot of folks on the call, with regard to your personal brand so intertwined with the company, because you mentioned a couple times that the business owner should not be necessary, or at least less necessary than he is now. So how do you reconcile the fact that the company was built based on the personal brand? In other words, customers and clients sign up with you because of you, not so much because of the name of the company. How do you reconcile that as you get, as you're contemplating an exit for, a year or two from now?
Yeah. So do you want to answer that, Rob?
I can, but go ahead, please, Randy. It'd be great.
So it is, a lot of companies start just the way you said. They start with their own name. They build out a name, and a company grows around them. But that's first stage of the company. That doesn't mean that the company can't be built into a company that doesn't rely on you alone. You ever heard of Wells Fargo? That was two guys, Wells and Fargo. Somehow they built a company that went outside of them. Nobody knows who they are or cares. But so there are certain kinds of businesses that will have limitations based on a super, super, super narrow skill set. But, I've learned that I have yet, I think, to find anybody that's truly irreplaceable. So too often that is like an objection that the owner puts up, because they want to think of themselves as so special, and so, that nobody else could step into their shoes or could supply the work. So I would say that starting with a little dose of humility helps us realize that, frankly, we're all replaceable at some level. So yes, it can be done is my answer. You just have to have the right mindset and the right, and you need to start. It's a process. So Rob, go ahead and add if you want.
No, I agree.
Let me jump in there for a quick second and be interruptive. Because I went on a 1-year sabbatical in 2021, I had a whole business built around, this group, right? Yep. And it was run by, many of you guys and my team. And the company still worked, and we got new members, and it was great. And as a matter of fact, there's probably some parts of it that were better by not having me there. But the whole point behind it is a good way to start, Michael, and anyone, because I know half the people here are thinking the exact same thing, is to start with as a test, a 1-month sabbatical, a 6-week sabbatical, and just because what'll happen is like what you said early on, Randy. Most people do not sell their businesses because they don't take the time to prep. They don't do all this stuff. And the fact is, you can be practicing all of this after this session ends today. And you can start saying, how do we set it up? So I had to, how do I set up my company? You know, it's that Alan Barnard, it's impossible to sell my company ... unless, you know, you set up certain things. And that's what the whole purpose of this session is here. But I would say one way to think about it is plan like a 2-week, a 4-week. You're going to have no involvement in the business and be willing to let things fall apart so you can know this is what I need to set up in order to be able to do that. I just wanted to give that insight, and then go ahead, Rob. Sorry about that.
No, agreeing 100% with both of you. And thank you, Joe. I to the extent that you can, as Joe's suggesting, and Randy's suggesting, become aware of separating the goodwill of the business from the goodwill of your name and be thoughtful about that is really helpful. At the same time, I gave a speech in Chicago recently on positioning your personal brand separately from the corporate brand and carrying that through past your exit, so that you can then have be able to leverage your personal brand after the exit, whether in areas that you're interested in developing your legacy or developing, you know, further business interests. And I think thinking of it that way will lead you to being aware that as deals come in or as client relationships develop, and they could be shared with others, and others can be put in your place in those relationships and in those circumstances, is really important. And when we position you as strategic buyers, they're expecting the entrepreneur to move on, and so they're looking at how they can take those relationships over with their brand. And for the most part, they're feeling quite confident about their brand being able to replace an entrepreneur. So it's less of an issue with strategic buyers. Private equity buyers are going to want you to leverage that brand in the business, develop a management team that replaces you, and eventually phase you out. But our view is that you'll get higher valuations and better terms from strategic buyers who private equity ultimately sells to.
Great.
Hey, Rob,
Thank you.
after we finish answering this next question, I think it would be great for you to just hop into this discussion we have all the time about pros and cons of buying or selling selling to a strategic buyer versus selling to a PE firm. Because, you know, the reason I love doing business with you is because we are so united on this whole point. Okay, so we'll go ahead and answer Mike's question first, and then we'll let him hop in there.
I wonder if, guys, if you could just speak to the time in advance. I mean, as a financial advisor, one of the problems I've experienced for years is clients determining to sort of stay with the business too long before they start to take a conversation with someone like you seriously. So you talked about risk earlier, and one of the risk management, risk mitigation things that people need to, it seems to me at least, need to undertake is actually to have enough time, enough runway to be able to create the value that you're talking about. So is there an ideal time frame, and how might an advisor raise it with their client?
In general, I will say that, let me answer this. In general, I would say that it's never too early to plan. We've had people start as early as 10 years in advance, and we've had people, some that were actually relatively prepared, that pulled it off within a year. But in general, we would say that we like about a 3-year time horizon. So that, and we have this exit checklist that we put together, sort of sets out some of the things we would like to get started in that first 3 years and work through that. And then we end with the things that we think need to then be done again, if you will, or done for the first time with about a year out, so that we know that we're going into the sale strong. And as Rob knows, none of us like surprises. Let me just say that. So we want to get want to get past as many possible surprises as we can, so that when we go to market, we have one thing and there's nothing in our way. We know what our job is, who we're selling to, and who we're going after, and we know how to build the sales process. We just don't like surprises. So the people that won't prepare, they're the ones that end up with lots of surprises. And also, it's very hard sometimes to get the M&A firm to take those people because they're not prepared. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
I would just augment that by saying there are firms like STS that will start with clients 2 or 3 years before, working with Randy and his team to support the readiness. So we call that process value max, and so that it's not too early to start a couple of years beforehand, working with professionals to help maximize value on that exit.
Yeah. It pays huge dividends, I have to tell you. It really does. So,
and not only that, you can get on the radars of strategic buyers. We can put you on the radar because they might then pop with an indicative value that exceeds what you're expecting because the timing's right for them. If it's not, that's one option if you're on the radar of strategic buyers. The other is to have them give instructive input to your strategy. So if you're, say you think Procter & Gamble as an example, or IBM would be a strategic, we can have them give input to you on what they're going to value 18, 24 months down the road. So your clients then can focus on, or you can focus on the areas that they're going to value. I could give a great example of that. It was a bakery company that we were working with in Poland that had a German buyer, and the German buyer said, we don't care about EBITDA. We're not going to value EBITDA at all. We're going to take the routes times our top 5 products times the profitability, and that'll be the valuation. So the client was able to then forget about EBITDA and invest more in infrastructure, so they had more routes, to give you a very specific, simple example.
very good.
Yeah, maximization of value. With that, I can, Randy, if you're okay, I'll go into your suggestion of private equity and other financial buyers versus strategic buyers. So just pause and see, because we're here for you. So if there's any other questions, just want to pause and see if there are at this point. So there's a big distinction between financial buyers and strategic buyers. And the way we like to think about it is to simplify this whole industry and boil it down. Plato said, if you can't explain something simply, you don't understand it. So we're really going to simplify here. A private business is, by the way, the vast majority of businesses. You don't see them in the papers and in media because they don't have the access to the information. But 75% of business in the United States is private. And in Europe and in Asia, it's in the 95+ range. And so that you are, as an entrepreneur, part of the vast majority of businesses. Those businesses are what private equity and merchant banks and venture capitalists and these middlemen, I call them middlemen because they're going to resell to a strategic fundamentally. So they are very, very smart. They're very slick. They're well educated. They've got a great story, but fundamentally, they want to buy low from you to sell high to what we call a strategic investor, the people they're going to resell to. And they're very smart, so they've figured out how to position you, let's say with IBM or P&G, depending on what industry you're in later. They make the call actually to those strategics and say, if we had this business ready in 3 to 5 years, what would you pay for it? So they're actually breaching the confidentiality terms in their research, they call it in their research. And so one of the reasons we started this business is to protect entrepreneurs from that very common financial buyer paradigm where Wall Street wants to buy, and those that are coming out of that training want to buy your business low as they can, give you a second bite of the apple. Think about that. That's a second bite of your own apple. You can keep your apple through till the time you sell it to a strategic buyer. So I just want to pause for a second and say before we go on, there's financial buyers that I'm positioning here as middlemen who buy low to sell high. Private equity is the most common one in the last 15 years. They've really built up. Merchant banks were before that, VCs. You guys know, SPACs. Those are all financial buyers trying to buy low to sell high. It's that simple. Does anybody have any questions before I go into the distinction between private equity and financial buyers and strategics? So the message is clear here. There's your one message I want you to please take home. You too can sell to strategic buyers. But as Randy said, you need to be really prepared. You need to understand where your strengths are. You need to have somebody that can explain and to the strategic buyers what the strategic fit is as you fit into their business, and hopefully get them, the art is to get them to open their kimono, as we say, and share with us what they're going to do with your business so that we can negotiate against the money they're going to make, not an EBITDA multiple, if that makes sense. I'll just pause there for a second. So financial buyers will offer you a substandard value of your business because whatever you can't see as your value, they don't want you to receive. And remember this, without getting into details, private equity operates on a 2 and 20 model, which I'm happy to go into, but it's kind of technical. But it means that they get to keep over a hurdle rate, usually 8%, 20 cents on any dollar they don't pay you, or that they can gain on the sale. And so that's a huge motivation on the private equity side with the model constructed as it is. So private equity buyers will not offer you the full value of your business. They will leverage your equity with debt from banks, and you have to carry that through the next 3 to 5 to 7 years. And on average, those that invest in private equity funds get their funds back in 10 years. So it's actually, they'll say 3 to 5 years, it's really 5 to 7 to 10 years that you will be carrying a debt load, working on behalf of private equity because you've taken, your 80% off the table. And I'm going to tell you a story that will illustrate that they will not offer you the full value. You're welcome to speak to Wayne and Dave, two brothers. They had a custom visuals, signage company in Tampa, Florida. I met them at a place where I promised my wife I wouldn't do any work on the Mekong River at dinner. And I hear people talking about M&A at the next table. Rob promised me you're not going to go over there and talk to them. Well, she ended up going at dessert to our cabin because I couldn't help it. I said, guys, I hear your conversation. I'm not trying to sell you. I just want to tell you, you're selling to private equity. It's not the full value. And they had a $40 million offer. And I said to them, look, I promised my wife I wouldn't work on this ship. I just got back from a meeting with 3,000 YPOers. When it hits 30 million, because they're at 40 now, just call us and we'll help you out. And so Wayne called. I said, I didn't know you very well. I've looked you up. You know what you're talking about. It hit 30 million. So we're now not sure what to do. So we took that out to strategics. I'm trying to show you the elasticity, the flexibility in private equity, and they're not going to offer full value. And they were hoping to get it back up to the 40 million. Does anyone want to guess what we got as a value from that same private equity firm? We took it out to the strategics, made them compete with the strategics, made them understand the full integrated value of the business, made them open up with, here's what we're going to do with it. But because it was complex, it had so many SKUs that the strategics were having trouble because none of them actually had, could take on all those products. So actually private equity, was a good place for it for a bit. Anybody want to guess what that same private equity firm out of Boston paid for that business? They were saying was worth 30 million after having to compete with strategics. $108 million. And so that same private equity firm, when they had to compete and were up against professional negotiators, paid over 3 times what they'd initially offered. So that's private equity. And now let's compare this to the joy, if there is joy in transactions of selling to a strategic. If you find the right strategic buyers and you position your business with them, they'll be very, very excited to get to know your business and to understand your business. And as we're explaining to them how it will fit in their business and the leverage it'll create for them, we want them to fall in love with your business. So if you're selling to financial buyers, they're not going to pay you the full value. They're going to want you to stay and really leverage your energy. They're going to leverage up with that. You're going to have to carry that debt, and you're going to be negotiated against fairly heavily because they keep 20 cents on the dollar that they don't pay. Strategics, on the other hand, are corporate managers that once they understand how your firm fits inside theirs, and we can help them understand that and get them to share with us as the professional advisor what they're doing so they don't make a mistake because their fear is of making a mistake, then you can end up with, please hear me here, 200 to 300% more than what private equity or financial buyers will pay. So that's the reason that you should understand that you too can sell to strategics. It's harder. It takes longer. It takes professional advisors, but it's worth it. And you can make a list of what it is, required outcomes, which we always ask for. What's a required outcome versus a preferred outcome? And that's something you want to be clear on as you're moving into your own process. And all those required outcomes can be laid in front of the strategic buyer once they're in love with the business, and they'll say, okay, tick, 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 tick. Well, maybe we have an issue with this one. And so getting a strategic buyer to fall in love with your business will bring huge value. And I'll give you another case history in a second. We just want to stop and see if there's any questions.
Yeah, there are a couple which I'll in the chat here. First of all, to Rick Drum's comment, I have seen that. I've also worked with John Ratliff, he's first class, a great guy, has done a good job for our clients also too. And so I would say that the program he's referring to there, I've seen it's good. Mike Volt's question, does STS or someone you know do consulting for corporate structure both?
That's just for you. That was just to you.
Just for me? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That is for me.
It's
I
okay.
apologize.
It's
I did
all right.
not see that. Forgive me, Mike.
I don't mind if it's public. It doesn't bother
No,
me.
it's good. Yeah, we'll get back to him. No, that's a private thing.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions on strategic buyers that Randy and I could answer for you? You can also do a roll up to sell if you're really ambitious and you've got a vision for being able to bring other businesses together in order to sell. That's something that we can help you manage as well. And Rich Ballot would be an excellent example of that. He's a wireless mobility owner, one of the smaller Verizon resellers originally. We started working with them, and Rich had a brilliant platform that was scalable and a fantastic vision and an ability to really sit down and communicate with other potential sellers. And we found a Japanese buyer that was interested in coming into the US market, but we couldn't figure out why. In Tokyo, we stayed in Tokyo with this strategic buyer until they would tell us why. And finally, over dinner, third bottle of wine with this 70-year-old Japanese guy, he was pounding the table, and I said, "You've got to tell us, or we're not gonna take." The reason is you need to know the integrated value to the buyer. And finally, the gentleman pounded the table and said, "It's insurance. Don't you get it? It's the insurance." And we thought, "Oh my gosh, no, we didn't get that, but thank you." You may not know this, but with your cell phone purchase, you buy insurance. Many of us do. And that's a 95% margin business added to the overall. And that's what they wanted to do, is get to the mothership. They're very patient, the Japanese. They wanted to help build the largest distributor. And that was the motive that drove that, which had nothing to do with EBITDA again. And that organization that started off as a value in the same range as Wayne and Dave's is now a multi-billion-dollar business, because we were able to support going out and purchasing other dealers, consolidating them, and the strategic buyer waited while they said, "Look, if you can get over 500 doors, that's when we'll really be able to pay a strategic multiple."
Yeah.
One of the questions is strategic your own language, or is it widely known in the field? It is known, but we were the ones that coined it and trademarked it 20 years ago. So it is becoming more like a strategic buyer is well known, but referring to them as strategics is something that we developed. There's many people that talk about strategic buyers, and I'll say this to any of you that want to test an investment banker or somebody who is telling you that they can represent you. And it's one of our thresholds for all of our managing directors coming in. For somebody to be able to position properly with a strategic buyer, they need to have been a strategic buyer, because then you understand the fears, you understand the stress of having to be able to gain consensus around the acquisition, and the fear of failure, and an understanding exactly how that operates and how to position the business, which is a marketing strength, understanding strategy as well. What are they going to do with it? What's that going to build for them? Is really where the leverage comes from in the conversation. So while it's true that people talk about the strategics, setting a teaser to a strategic is not marketing to a strategic, right? And so I won't get into now because we don't have a lot of time. I just want to say that selling to strategics is an art. And so we will be publishing books on that, volumes with each chapter being on a different deal, so we can really spread the word on how different.
Rob, can you really quick touch on, we get this question a lot, whether people should go to a industry-based, like a market-based, a lot of M&A firms, they specialize in a specific industry. Can you touch on the difference between, it's one of the reasons we love working with you is because you cast such a wider net. So can you touch on the difference between your firm that is a wider net versus an industry specific?
Thank you. And I have to say, thank you. It's an ongoing question that people debate. I was on a call yesterday with 38 owners of iBanks in YPO, and they were debating it. And many of them have gone specialization. And those of us that are generalists, we're challenging them and saying, look at this from the client standpoint. So I'm going to answer the question from the client standpoint. From the client standpoint, you guys want a representative that's going to absolutely focus on you and your interests in maximizing value for you. Now, what are the three reasons why an industry specialist can't do that? Well, the first one, or isn't as good a position as a generalist. And so a generalist is better for you to maximize value. The first reason is they are going to do many transactions with those strategic buyers that are in their market. So if they know that Joe Smith is the corporate development guy at, say, XYZ large organization, then they can't offend Joe by negotiating hard for you, because they're going to be back in there the next week or next month with another deal that Joe needs to accept their input on, because they're doing business together all the time. That's against the interests of the seller. There was a legal case that HP launched on this. It was launched against HP, sorry, because HP, they say, seduced and that's not my words, it's theirs, the iBank into recognizing that they had to reduce the price and the terms and conditions in order to make HP happy, as opposed to the seller. And the seller found out about this and sued. And so that's a natural that you can see. The second reason is because the bell curve of valuations in that business, of those of you that are into math, the bell curve of the 80% of where the valuations fall is created by those firms. And so they will tell you it's 7 to 8 times or 5 to 7 times. If you're going to be out on the front of the bell curve, which is where you want to be as an exceptional high-end valuation, you want to be with somebody that's actually thinking creatively, which is the third reason that you can expect more value from a generalist than an industry specialist. And that is that the creativity that comes to the firm from other industries can be applied in that industry and shared, and that often increases the valuation. And so to counter that, though, a firm needs to have experts in that industry as advisors, and to be able to pull those advisors in onto the deal team where required, if the client doesn't want to be the industry specialist. Sometimes clients are offended. They're like, I know more about this. I've forgotten more than you guys will ever learn. But sometimes they're open to bringing experts in. We have 4,275 expert advisors at STS. And so we draw from that group to bring them on the deal team to have the industry expertise, but be a generalist that will support the seller. It's about an extraordinary exit for the seller. So hopefully I answered that completely for you.
Yeah, and we've worked with a number of Rob's teams, which we have totally enjoyed that too. And one thing I'd like to raise, I think, here towards the end of things is just the whole discussion, a brief discussion about due diligence. Preparing the company for sale makes the due diligence go a lot smoother. Due diligence is once we go into, we've settled, if you will, on one buyer, and they're going to do a deep dive then and start requesting information from everywhere about everything. And they start doing a deep dive into looking at your company, and it'll be looked at in deeper and in ways you've never thought possible. So Rob can speak to this at some level, at a great level too. But the due diligence thing is the place where, when I talk about they don't like surprises, this is typically where they're found. So we don't like to find accounting surprises. We don't like to find, we don't want to find fraud. We don't want to find just that's the whole world of things can show up out of due diligence. So the big piece for you to know here is just that the preparation we're talking about, especially in the year before, is a super big deal. You want to go into that due diligence deep dive, knowing that and being confident that you're going to come out smelling like a rose, and that's going to increase the negotiating power on behalf of of Rob and his team and whoever else is working on it. So, you want to add to that, Rob?
No, I just want to say thank you. That was well articulated there. I also want to comment on Rick's comment there on the $65.5 million. We were the people that negotiated that for John. He was our client, and we there was only one buyer. I want to let you know, Rick, in that case, which made it stressful. So we created an imaginary competitive buyer out of the Philippines, as it was a hazardous waste phone center that we were looking at. And so we had some people phone into the Chicago area. It was very exciting. And John was like, can we just quit now? And we said, no, we have to keep going. And I remember it was Easter right around now that year when the client said, you have me stretched so tight like an elastic, I'm about to pop. And John was texting me saying, let it go. And I said, no, it hasn't popped yet. And so that's how we were negotiating against one, but we took it up with the fear that he'd shared with us. He shared this fear with us, as all executives will do eventually if you get them open up. He was afraid of the Filipinos coming in. So the way we created that value was an imaginary, which was true. An old friend of mine named Robbie Delgado called from the Philippines into Chicago and scared the buyer into believing there was a competitor. So that's how that price went up to 300% of the industry average for John Ratliff. So just some more context there, Rick, and thanks for raising that.
Yeah, that's right. That's good.
Gina, I know we only have a couple of minutes. Do you want them to go over the checklist and?
Yeah,
Great. Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gina. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's great. Yes, Ellen, thank you very much. Yes. So we do have a checklist for everyone that they have built and put together, and I'll put it in the chat when they call for it. But what do you guys want to share on this first?
Yeah, I was going to say that we've also put together a couple of how do I say this? Supplementary help to them, if you will. So Long Business Advisors, we are offering a complimentary hour of consulting on the front end of anybody interested in a discussion. And Rob, I'll let you talk about it.
Thank you. And we'll offer a strategic business valuation from STS. That is, if you qualify your private business, what would the range be of what a strategic buyer would pay for your business? I also want to comment that that STS also stands for success to significance. The reason we're here is to help create billions of dollars of new philanthropic capital and to help people do that through maximizing the value of their business. So the philosophical reason we're all here at STS is to help make the world a better place. Although that's not normally what you find in the investment banking world. I just want to say one thing. The sale of your private business can help you often. In my own experience, it did. And for many, many friends that have become friends after selling their businesses, they've moved along there to support their own personal vision in their life, their own path of success to significance. And so if selling to a strategic can help support your success to significance goals, we would be honored to represent you.
Yeah.
I love it. And Simon, I'm so glad you joined. Simon just popped a question into the chat. Can you help with companies in the UK? I'm a majority shareholder of a development finance business, which we hope to sell in 2025. Simon, you're welcome to come on and say hello, ask any questions.
Hello.
Hi, so good to
Hello,
see you.
Simon.
Thank you.
Simon.
I've not been in Genius Group for quite a while, so it's great to get the invite to this, and it's been great content so far. So thank you so much.
I just want to start by saying that I was on a call with a client in Canary Wharf this morning. We started this business in England. It started at Oxford when I was basically thrown out of the PhD program for having the wrong accent, which you can hear. I have the wrong accent.
I can understand that. It's not very British at all.
And right, no, that's a beautiful accent. If anybody knows, that's a beautiful accent. But so you can tell I do understand England. We do understand. We are doing business. We have an office in the city at STS, and we have offices in Monaco and in Amsterdam, and we'd be very happy to help you. And we'd love Randy's team to support helping you prepare. We can be on the ground, and the balance can be, over Zoom. But absolutely, we're global in 34 cities, and very happy to help. And I'll be in England the beginning of May, trying to avoid the coronation. I'm staying down there, but to try to avoid it in case getting together then would be of value. Happy to.
Let me also say, do that. And let me also say to everyone that in this time frame, this is a setup process, right? So in order to get the conditions of an exit, start setting it up now. And I think one of the biggest things I would love to have everyone take away from here is just to give you the perspective on how to start setting up your company to exit. Even if you have no intention of it, things are just going to function better when you start focusing that way. It's the main reason we have done these sessions. There's great 10-minute talks on the membership site. And also I have a great interview with Rob. We have a lot of stuff on the membership site related specific to this topic. So hopefully this has been really valuable and really educational.
One more thing, Joe, to your comment that everybody's going to exit. The idea that you might not want to exit doesn't matter. You're going to exit. Are you going to do it well or are you going to do badly? Right. So we all need the preparation, period.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
No, exactly. Yeah. It's so critical because most people, they do not exit in any elegant manner. They either they go bankrupt, they lose their company, they turn it over to family. There's all kinds of ways this can go south. And this is a huge advantage. Even if you don't think it's a big deal, if you take this seriously, there will be a point in time where you will be very happy that this became hopefully a domino for you.
That's right.
I want to thank those that are thanking us for the presentation. We appreciate you listening. Thank you.
It was good. Had a great crowd. I love that. Everybody, I kind of figured this would be interesting to everybody because if they know what I said, everybody's going to they're going to exit. We all want to try to do this well. All of us do. So I'm thankful that you were all here. And Rob, thank you for your presentation, for your friendship and the work. We love working with you guys. So, and Joe, for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Now,
possible.
thank you both. This was really, really valuable. And I'm, this is one of the most important things that we're going to have a lot more conversations on Genius Network at the meetings and whatnot. So thank you both.